Hi everyone, I'm going to give everyone a minute to log in from the waiting room, and I will also launch the closed captioning for anyone who needs closed captioning. When that goes live, you'll see a red live button and you click on that to see the closed captioning. Unfortunately, the closed captioning is only in English, but we will have live Spanish interpretation for this webinar, and I will put that number in the chat box also. All right, closed captions are up. So let me share the Spanish language interpretation information here. That's in the chat box. And closed captions. And I will share that link so everyone can access that. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a webinar about sealing and expunging. My name is Christy Bagalow. I'm the Director of Statewide Training at Florida Legal Services, and I'm so happy to have Maria Sanchez back with us from the Legal Aid Society of the Orange County Bar. She has agreed to give this presentation for the public today, and I am so grateful for the Hispanic Federation for reaching out about providing this live Spanish interpretation for this webinar. I really, really appreciate that. That helps us bring the message to more people. So we do have closed captioning. It is being recorded, and you do have the Spanish language option. So reach out to me in the chat if you have any issues with those services. So I'd like to welcome Yanitzi Velez. She's the State Director of the Hispanic Federation, and she is the one responsible for bringing this to us in Spanish today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and gracias a todos por acompañarnos en el día de hoy. It's a great delight to have everyone on board today to provide this information. As we, Hispanic Federation, are the national Latino-led nonprofit organizations, we have offices in several states: Rhode Island, Washington, Florida, Connecticut, and also Puerto Rico. And we provide information in both English and Spanish to empower and advance the Latino community. And providing these forums, virtual forums under COVID-19 pandemic, it is crucial because we know that we are in historic numbers, but also we are living historical times. So we are very happy to partner with each one of you to provide this to our audience in Spanish through the translation. So we have a translation that people can call at 407-77-2874, 407-77-728-74. Thank you so much. If you want to know about more the programs that we have at Hispanic Federation, you can always visit our website, hispanicfederation.org, but also you can go to our helpline for local resources and assistance for voters and information about census that is still going up to October 31st at 1-844-HF-AYUDA. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's an honor to co-host this event.
Thank you so much again to Yanitzi and the Hispanic Federation, along with Laudy, Mario, and Freddie. And of course, I do not want to forget our fabulous interpreter, Maria Angelica Ramirez. I am just in awe of people who can simultaneously translate. It is amazing. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I will turn it over to Laura.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for spending time today. I know it's 4 o'clock. It's a little bit late in the afternoon, but we really appreciate you coming on and learning something new. So I'm going to share my screen, and bear with me. I want to make sure it works. Let's see. All right. Okay, I think everyone can see that, hopefully. So as Christy mentioned, my name is Maria Sanchez. I'm a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society. And I want to give you a little bit of a synopsis of who we are and what we do. Oh, I think I'm frozen. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm really bad with technology, so if I do something wrong, give me a second. I will definitely try and work it out. So here at the Legal Aid Society, we are a nonprofit law firm. Everything that we handle is completely free at no cost. We are located in downtown Orlando, and it's for low-income individuals. We handle cases from family law, immigration, consumer, housing, sealing and expungement, and we also have a tax clinic where we prepare taxes for free to people who make $60,000 or less a year. And it's completely free at no cost. So if you need any of those services, our information will be at the end of the presentation as well. So I want to start just by making a couple of points. So sealing and expungement is a state law. Today, I will only be talking about Florida law, nothing else. If you do have a charge or you want information on process and how to handle sealing and expungement in another state, I can refer you to either a legal aid in that state or another type of organization that would handle that, where you're at or where your charge occurred. So we're only talking about Florida law today. And I want to start off with giving you an idea of what would qualify or disqualify you to be able to seal or expunge a criminal record. So one very important thing, you can only seal or expunge a criminal charge. You can't seal or expunge anything civil. There's two types of things that can happen. You can either get a record expunged or sealed. If it's an expungement, the law determines what records you can seal or expunge. Expungement is for anything that has been dropped. So meaning you were not prosecuted. Sometimes it's called no information, no indictment. If you weren't found guilty of anything in that charge, that would be something that would fall under expungement. Sealing is anything else. So if it wasn't dropped and you were, for example, they gave you adjudication withheld at the end of your case, then that will qualify for sealing. One big point to know is that everything has to be closed. All of your charges have to be closed if you have multiple charges in the state of Florida. And why do I say that? So Florida has a very narrow law for sealing and expungement. So what happens is we need to find out everything that happened at the end of each case if you have multiple charges. And the reason for that is that every single charge on your record has to qualify under Florida law for you to be able to seal or expunge one of them. So for example, let's say you have a petty theft charge and you have a battery charge. If the battery charge was dropped, but the petty theft charge, they found you guilty of that charge, what ends up happening is that you can never seal or expunge anything under Florida law. Florida law states that if you were ever found guilty of any criminal crime in the state of Florida, you cannot seal or expunge any of your record. So it is very narrow. This also includes criminal traffic tickets. So I know there are certain criminal traffic tickets where, let's say you're speeding over a certain limit, and that turns from a civil ticket to a criminal traffic ticket. If you were found guilty of that criminal traffic ticket, that will prevent you from sealing or expunging any of your record. So that's very important. That's one of the big things that would disqualify someone from being able to go through that process. So let me go to the next slide. So it's important to note that, like I said, we have to verify every single charge. So in every county that you have a record in, or you think you have a record in the state of Florida, we need to know about it. If you're interested in doing the process, we need to know that every single record qualifies. That way we can give you a better idea of what to do. Also, like I said, Florida is very narrow when it comes to sealing and expungement. You can only seal one or expunge one record in the state of Florida. So you can't seal one and expunge one. You either get one or the other, depending on the charge and on what the law determines you can do, either the sealing or the expungement. So it's very harsh. Normally, I tell my clients, they know if they have multiple records, what record is really harming them the most. And that's the one that we go with. You have to make sure that that is the one that is going to prevent you, or at least it's preventing you right now from either getting employment or housing, because you can't go back. Once it's sealed or expunged, that record is gone and you can't go back and say, oh no, I want to do something else. I don't want to do that record. It's pretty much one and done. That's it. So I definitely want to emphasize that. That's very important. I'm going to divide this into two different parts. So expungement, I'll start with that first, and I'll give you guys the difference between expungement and sealing. So it does the same thing. It's just how the record is kept. So let's say you have a record on a shelf. You put it on a shelf. If it qualifies for expungement, they take it out, they put a card, and they say there was a record here, you can't see it. If it's sealed, the record has tape around it. They put a card and they say there's a record here, but you still can't see it. So it does the same thing. It's just how the record is kept. So expungement and sealing takes out your criminal record from background checks and the clerk of court, but the state always keeps one record, always. So that record is kept in a certain way, and that's the difference between the expungement and the sealing, but it does the same thing. So for expungement, there's only one difference between that and sealing when it comes to the process. So if you're interested, you will come to my office, schedule an appointment, call us. We look up everything in the state of Florida or every county that you think you have a record in, and we let you know, hey, your record qualifies. Which one do you want to do? Or if you just have one, then let's do that one. From there, we help you fill out a Florida Department of Law Enforcement application. So Florida Department of Law Enforcement is who you will be sending in everything that has to do with expungement. They're in charge of the expungement and sealing process in the state of Florida. So we complete an application, you sign it, notarize it. This second step is a step that's a little bit different from sealing. So before you submit it in to Florida Department of Law Enforcement, you send it to the state attorney. And that's something that the attorney that's assigned to you at no cost will be helping you as well. So you send it in to the state attorney has to approve it. So they sign off on it and they mail it back. Once we receive it again, we would then send it to Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Before we do, you would have to get your fingerprints done on a specific card, and you can only do it at the sheriff's office, and I believe they charge about $10. Then you have to get a certified copy of the disposition of the case, and you get that from the clerk of court. It's basically a notarized copy of what happened at the end of your case. So you get that from the clerk of court. It could be between $5 to $7. And then, of course, the state charges you a fee to process that application, and it's a $75 fee that you would send in with your Florida Department of Law Enforcement application. So those things all combined, like I said, the attorney does not charge you anything, but the state does, and the clerk of court does, and the sheriff's office does. So it's about $90 to begin and start. And I say that because it's a a simple process, but it takes a while. So once you submit the application to the state, it takes a minimum of 8 months for the state to let you know that you are good to go. Now with COVID, it's taking a little longer, about 9 to 10, and there's nothing we can do to speed up that process. The state, I believe, is processing applications right now for March. So it's pretty far off from where we are now. We're almost at the end of the year and they're still doing applications for the beginning of the year. So it does take a while, but once that's done and you wait that time, the state will then send you what is called a certificate. That certificate says that you're good and now you can go to your second step. And the second step will be for you to file a case in court. The attorney that would help you with the state's application will also help you with the petition and the court process. So they would file the certificate that they got from the state, they would file a petition, an affidavit, and a proposed order. All of this is filed with the clerk of court and filed in your case. So what ends up happening is we always have to give the state attorney 25 days to object and make sure they're still okay with you expunging that record. So it's a little bit of time. Normally they're really quick here in Orange County. I've had cases where the state attorney takes 1 to 2 days. And once we get the no objection, then the judge has to sign that order. And we always serve every single party that was involved in the case. So if you were arrested by the sheriff's office, they get a copy of the petition. Everybody involved would get a copy. That's something that we have to do by law. Once the state attorney sends the no objection, the judge will then sign the proposed order. It's important to mention that even though you waited all this time, the state attorney approves, the state approves, the judge has complete discretion to deny the petition. Has it happened? Not a lot, rarely. 99% of the time, the judge will sign it and you're good to go. But it's important to say that because sometimes it does happen and they do want you to come in for a hearing. And I don't want any of my clients to be shocked and say, oh, I thought it was a done deal. So it has happened, but it's very rare. Once the proposed order is signed, the second step in that court case is for you to pay your clerk of court fees. So normally the clerk of court fees are between $45 to $75, and that covers everything that's sent out to every single person involved in your case. They do have to send that proposed order out and signed so that they can pull your records out. So it's about $45 to $75, depending how many pages they have to mail out to them. And once that's done, your record is expunged. So it's really simple. It just takes a little bit of time. I always say from the time you come see me to the time the case is closed out, it's about a year to a year and a half process. It's a little bit draining waiting around, right? But I think honestly, it's worth it at the end once you have that all cleared up and you can go get a job or apply for housing. It's very important. I think for a lot of people, especially if you only have one record, it's essential. It does take time, but I think it's definitely worth it. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sealing, which is pretty much the same process, except that we do not send the application to the state attorney. So I do have a statute on here, and there are certain crimes that you cannot seal, even though they qualify under the adjudication withheld disposition. It would not be able to get sealed because there's certain exceptions in Florida. So any crime that has to do with children, sexual crimes, murder, all of those things, Florida prevents you from sealing. So if it's not one of those crimes in this statute, then what we do, like I said, I research everything, make sure the record qualifies. If you have multiple records, you choose which one you want to seal. And then if you just have one, then we would seal that one. We prepare the application for Florida Department of Law Enforcement, where you sign it and notarize it. And then this goes straight to Florida Department of Law Enforcement with your $75, your fingerprint card, and your certified copy of the disposition of the case. So we don't have to go through the state attorney first. Once that's done, again, we wait the long 8 months, 9 or 10 now, and we wait and wait until we get that certificate. Once we get the certificate, again, the attorney that helped you at the beginning of the case will be helping you at the end as well. They will be filing your petition, they will be filing your certificate, your proposed order, the affidavit. We give the state attorney, again, 25 days to object, make sure they're okay and they're approving it and that they're good to go. We serve all of the agencies involved, so everybody involved in your case knows that there's a petition being filed. And then once that's done and the state attorney says, hey, there's no objection, we agree, the judge will then sign the order. And of course, they also have complete discretion here where they can deny it. And like I said, it doesn't happen much. It's very rare, but it's always good for my clients to know. And once that's signed, you pay your clerk of court fees again. Could be either $45 to $75. I haven't seen it more than that. I've actually seen it less for $35. So hopefully that will be the case for a lot of people. And once that's paid, then that's it. Your record is sealed as well. Now, I did say Florida is very narrow, so there's more exceptions. Technically, I tell people once that record is sealed or expunged, you can legally lie and say, I do not have a record. I'm good, it's not there. However, there are certain exceptions in the state of Florida. For example, so anything that has to do with the government, if you're applying for a job with anything in the city, the county, the federal government, they know everything. They will know that you have that record. They're one of the exceptions that can still see it. That's why I mentioned at the beginning the Florida Department of Law Enforcement always holds one record. That is why, because of these exceptions. If you're trying to apply for jobs with seniors, jobs with children at schools, anything that has to do with a state license. So if you're applying to become a CPA, a doctor, an attorney, anything that requires you to have a license under the state of Florida, you have to disclose it. You have to tell them, yes, I have a record, because they can see it. A lot of my clients ask me why I should even get it expunged or sealed if they can still see it. So for example, I get a lot of nurses. The hospitals, yes, they can see that record. However, they like them to get their record sealed or expunged, because then a third party suing them will not be able to see that record. So it protects them from liability from somebody else that's not the hospital from seeing that record. So that's why I think it's still important, even if you're applying to any of these kinds of jobs, because they would still want it sealed or expunged. And it might even help you get that job, even if they're able to have access to that as well. All right, so I'm gonna go, so that's pretty much the whole process for sealing and expungement. I'm gonna just talk really briefly about background checks. I don't handle background checks, but I just wanna say a couple of things that I've gotten questions on a lot. So determining what comes out in a background check normally is up to the quality of that background check. So somebody can pay a lot of money to do a full 30-year background check, or an employer can pay a little bit of money to do a 5 or 10-year background check. So it really depends. I don't know what employers use what. It really depends on them as well, but I've had clients come in that have a record from 10 years ago, and where they applied, it didn't come up. So they don't want to seal or expunge. I've had clients come in that had record from 20 years ago, and it's come up on a background check. So it really depends. I don't know which ones, like I said, would do a really in-depth one or just a simple background check, but it's always good to know that that's why there's such a big gap in that. Also, even after your record is sealed or expunged, so Florida has an interesting way of selling information, right, to private entities as like a record keeping. So your record could have been sold to multiple different companies, and it's hard to pinpoint how many. It could be hundreds in the state of Florida. So sometimes when your record is sealed or expunged and you're applying for a job, or you're applying to rent an apartment or a home, it will come up randomly on a background check. If it does happen, you would come back to us and we will assign you an attorney to help you with that. So what that means is they never got the proposed order from the judge, or they chose not to take it out. So we would send them the proposed order, tell them, hey, look, that judge signed an order saying this record is expunged or this record is sealed. And if they refuse to take it down, then we would file a lawsuit against them with that. I don't handle those types of cases, so I don't know exactly the process, but we do have attorneys that will be able to help you with that if that were to happen at the end of going through all of this. And another thing I do want to really quickly just emphasize, what exactly is covered by sealing and expungement. So sealing and expungement is only for employment and housing. It will not give you the right to vote back. It will not give you the right to acquire a gun. So that's a completely different process. It has nothing to do with sealing or expunging that record. Also, this is not a pardon by the governor. This is completely different. This is a court process. Pardons have nothing to do with sealing and expungement. So that's definitely one big thing that I wanted to let people know. I know a lot of my clients come and ask me about that, or just a lot of people don't know the difference. So I always like to bring that up just in case. All right. So that is pretty much the entire process. Like I said, it's not hard. It just takes a little time. We'll take some questions now if anybody has any questions. And this is my contact information. We have our office number and then my email address as well. If you do have any other questions there, or if you want to apply to get your record sealed or expunged, you would call us and we would go from there. But if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thank you for all that great information. We did have a couple questions come in.
Yes.
So the first
one, Spanish, I can say it in Spanish as well.
So this one is, you recommend doing a Florida Department of Law Enforcement personal review of criminal history record before applying for the certificate of eligibility?
Not necessarily, you don't have to. A lot of my clients don't. It just, I guess you would if the person just doesn't know and they think they have records.
Excuse me, this is the interpreter.
Oh.
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do you recommend doing a Florida Department of Law Enforcement personal review of criminal history record before applying for a certificate of eligibility?
So yeah, so it depends. I never ask my clients to do it. I don't think it's really necessary when they know where their records are. But there are some people that just don't know. They might think they have a record in 20 different counties, right? So maybe they do want to pay that fee and go and get it done. Or maybe I think the first one is free, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe I'm saying something else with them, and if not, I think it's $25, something like that, to get a copy. You can. I normally don't do it. I normally just ask all of the counties and I look them up. If it's a juvenile record though, that's a little bit different. And we wouldn't handle any juvenile stuff. We would probably send it out to a pro bono attorney and not do it in-house. That's a completely different process as well, but and they might come up possibly, not sure, on one of those FDLE background checks, but I normally don't. I normally don't have any of my clients do it unless they're very confused as to how many records and how many counties they have.
Okay, that makes sense. And can you announce how people can reach you at Orange County Legal Aid if they live in Orange County? And also if you know of any other resources throughout the state who can help with this type of issue, just for those who are listening by phone or listening to the interpretation and they can't see your slides, if you could just number.
Yeah, so you guys can call us. So the best way to reach us is to call our main number, which is the 407-841-8310. We're there Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5. I believe right now, since we are physically closed to the public, we're only taking calls. So what we would do is you would call in and press 0. They will assign you to one of our assistants who will call you from a block number. That's very important. A lot of people don't pick up. Since we are working from home, we're using our own personal numbers and we're not able to give that out. So we will call you from a block number and take your information down and do a full application for you. Regarding other records, so sealing and expungement is one of our main things that we do that do not require you to live in Orange County, which is great. So if you don't live in Orange County, you can still call us and we can still help you. If it's somewhere in another, let's say in South Florida, we wouldn't be able to practice there, so file a case there, but we can tell you if your record qualifies, and then we have connections with the legal aids there who will be able to help you with that as well. So there's a whole bunch of legal aids in other counties that if we can assist, we will send you there. And if they don't do sealing and expungement, then we have a place that we send you to called Clean Slate Clearinghouse, and they have a lot of information on what you can do as well in that particular county.
Okay, great. I'm putting that information in the chat box, and everyone will find if you call legal aid and they can't help you, they will try to get you to someone who can help you. So just give them a call. We did have a couple other questions come in. Someone mentioned that there's a new statute about unlimited automatic sealing, which I have not heard of it. I'm hoping it's
So it came into effect October, so about a year ago, October of last year. And there hasn't been anything done yet on it. We haven't seen any cases or anything that would give us any idea of how it works. Unfortunately, the statute was very vague as well. So it didn't really tell us, hey, this is what you can do. What I do know about it, so the automatic sealing is for any record that will qualify for sealing, non-violent, obviously. So it's not a court process. What it says is that it tells Florida Department of Law Enforcement to seal the record. It does not tell the clerk of court to remove it from any of the records. It does not tell anybody involved in your case to remove it from their records. So we still haven't seen one yet where it's happened. It's also for any charge that occurred after October of last year. So it's not retroactive. It doesn't go back to any previous charges. So if you have a charge past October and you want to see if that was automatically sealed, call us because we're dying to get one case. We haven't had one yet, so we're trying to figure out how it works. We haven't had any attorneys file, so I actually was speaking to a pro bono attorney from our district, and he was telling me that he thinks, so since it's automatically sealed with Florida Department of Law Enforcement, that's what the statute says, right? Then he can petition the clerk of court to seal it as well. It hasn't happened. We haven't seen it yet. Is it going to go through? I don't know. Is that something that the clerk of court can just do without a court order? There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions on how it would work. But if you do have a charge and if you're interested in it, please call me because I'm dying to find out how it works and dying to get a case like that. That would be great.
Okay, we had a request to repeat the question we're answering currently. So the question was about a new statute passed in Florida a year ago on October 1st, 2019. And it basically says you can automatically seal an unlimited number of charges. Am I getting that right, Laura?
Yes.
Okay, and so Laura was saying that theoretically that is on the books, but she hasn't seen it happen yet and is not sure how it works. So if you're in that situation and your charge was after October 1st, 2019, definitely call Laura because she is dying to get one of these cases. I love it when I hear that.
Yes, I really want to know how it's actually going to play out in court.
It sounds lovely. I hope it's true.
I know, right? Yes.
So the next question is, if you're found guilty of a felony, can you get a passport? I don't know if you know that.
I do not know that actually. I guess it would go back to all the rights that are taken away. So sealing and expungement is only, like I said, for housing and employment. I'm not sure if they would take your passport away. Maybe if it's serious enough, possibly I could get back to you. But I wouldn't really know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't remember there being a background check to get a passport, but I could be wrong.
I don't remember that either, but who knows?
All right, let's see what other questions we have. And someone reminded us passports are federal law, right? So that should be good in this case because
Yes.
Florida is more restrictive than other states.
Yes.
Yes, that's a good point and probably a positive thing for Floridians. See, I thought I saw another one in the chat. Okay, so last chance to type in questions. And Maria, if you have questions come in on your line, let us know. You can type it in the chat in Spanish, and luckily Laura is multi-talented and can answer those.
Yes. Oh, yes, we do speak Spanish too, just so you know. I can read, write in Spanish. I speak Spanish. We have a lot of assistants that speak Spanish as well. So if you're scared to call because you don't think you'll be able to communicate, don't worry. We have somebody that speaks Spanish too.
Excellent. Well, while we wait on more questions to come in, I had a question for you. You talked about the fees that are required for filing. Is there any sort of waiver of those fees if you don't have enough money to pay them, or is there a sliding scale?
Unfortunately, no. Definitely not for Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And I know the clerk of court has not waived any fees as of now. I think we could try to do a waiver form for the clerk of court fees, but for Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they will not waive any of those fees. What we've done in the past, we've got and had anonymous donors come in and donate to our clients and actually pay off their clerk of court fees and their Florida Department of Law Enforcement application fees as well. So if that's something that you're having some trouble with, let us know when you call, and we can see if there's something we can do to be able to help you with that.
Okay, that's great. We did have a question come in. It's kind of a long one, so I'll try to remember to do this slowly. I'm really bad at that. How does the underlying case look with regard to the clerk of the court? And I assume they're talking about after it's sealed or expunged. Will the charge still show up and not allow access to the case? Or is the case number and filing removed from the clerk's records altogether?
So everything will be removed altogether. It's like a blank slate. Nothing's going to come up. No case number, no name, no information. So if you only had that one charge and they look up your name on the clerk of court, it's gone. It will have nothing on there.
Excellent. And the second part of the question is, what if there are multiple counts on the first charge and the other counts were no prost?
So that's definitely a tricky question. So first I do want to say, so you have one charge with multiple counts. If all of those counts are the same, meaning if they all qualify, right, then they will all go. I think you're asking if one is adjudication withheld and then two of them are dropped. So we do the lesser. It will be the lesser of the two. So it will be the sealed part. That's what you would do for all of them. You wouldn't be able to expunge all of them because one of them is adjudication withheld. So they all have to qualify, and we would take the lesser of the two. So it would be sealing instead of expungement for all of them.
Okay, great. And something to keep in mind is it is really hard to do this in Florida. And Laura is so positive, but she makes it sound like such a joyful process. But the statute is just so narrow that no matter how positive she is, there's just a lot of people who are not going to qualify, unfortunately. Other states are apparently nicer.
They are. There's a lot of states that the process is not that long, and you can do multiple charges instead of just one. Unfortunately, Florida is not that state. I try and make it as pleasant as possible. I know it's kind of frustrating sometimes, right? Trying to get through all this, and especially when you have multiple charges, trying to pick that one. So we always sit down and have a talk and try and make it as pleasant and easy and smooth as possible. But it is a little narrow, and I always tell people, hey, I can only do as much as the law allows me to. So unless it changes, it hasn't changed in a while, but if it does, then I can do more, right? So.
Something to reach out to your elected representatives about if you want to see that changed. Just to give people some hope, even if they don't qualify for sealing or expunging in Florida. What are some other options? I know I was surprised to learn that Goodwill and some other community organizations have lists of employers who accept applicants who have felony backgrounds and that kind of thing. Do you have more resources?
Yes, so definitely Goodwill. We actually partnered with them a lot, and we were doing in-person seminars like this before COVID with their job fair classes. So they would get a whole bunch of people to sign up who were looking to get a job through Goodwill, and we would explain to them the process. And then if they couldn't get it sealed or expunged, then they have a list, yes, of employers who would still take you even if you do have a record. I don't know of anything else, but I do know that there's a lot of employers that are not necessarily on that list that would still take you. There's a lot of places that even if you have a felony, they would still give you that second chance and say, hey, look, he or she is trying to better themselves, and they really want to apply for this job. So it really depends on the employer. I'm not going to say they're all like that. A lot of them just want it gone, but there are some out there that do help and try and give a second chance to a lot of these individuals. Goodwill is definitely one of them. I wouldn't know of any other resource directly, but there are employers that are not with Goodwill that would still hire.
Okay, that's good to hear. Someone had some trouble logging in, so I did want to let everyone know this will be posted on the Florida Legal Services YouTube page, and I think Hispanic Federation will also be posting it. We're going to try to post it both with English audio and Spanish audio so that everyone can view it at your convenience. It was a lot of information to cover in a short amount of time, so feel free to go back and review that and share it with friends and family who maybe couldn't join today. And let me check one more time to see if we have any questions.
I thought I saw somebody raise their hand.
I thought so too, but it kind of disappears so quickly. So let me see where that person went, if I can find them.
Oh, I think it was Joseph Weinberg.
Okay, let me see if I can go over here. So it happens when I'm working on a tiny screen. Okay, if you're able to type in the question, that's easiest, but okay. So let me just see if he has a question. Okay, I did see another question come in. Can we get a copy of the presentation if we provide our email? Because we didn't have registration, that does make it a little more difficult to send a follow-up, but I'll put my email address in the chat. And if you email me and ask for the PowerPoint, I'm happy to send it to you. So let me just put my information in the chat. Okay, if you want PowerPoint, and my email address is really long, so I'm just going to type it in. Okay, I just put that in the chat along with the YouTube link. So I encourage everyone to check out the YouTube page and subscribe. There's a lot of good information on there. It is all in English, unfortunately, but there are closed captions, so that's at least a little bit helpful. Hopefully we'll have some more information in Spanish coming up next year. Okay, I haven't heard back from Joseph to see if he has a question, so hopefully he was just waving at us. So I think that's it for questions. So thank you again, Laura, for doing this. I really appreciate you coming back and doing this for a public audience. And thank you so much to Hispanic Federation for providing our wonderful interpreter, Maria, today, who is making this more accessible for a broader audience. So I really appreciate that. Thank you all for attending, and look for this on YouTube by tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.